The body has a lot of layers. We're sort of peeling away those different layers in this root cause healing.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Roaming Collective podcast. I am here with a very special guest. This has been my functional health practitioner for over a year. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Trisha. I'm really excited. We can talk all about your journey, all of it, all the things. So thanks for having me.
Of course, and I'm so glad that you're here with us because you have so much knowledge. And again, you know me from the beginning of my journey into now, so you have definitely seen all the ups and downs. We also personally become friends too. So I'm just so happy to have you here because I feel like you just have so much insight to give, all of your functional health background. I'm just so excited to have you on because I feel like people are going to really resonate with you and everything that you have to share too.
I'm so excited. Yes, it definitely all aligned. Perfect timing. So this is great.
Yes. Okay. So to kick it off, I want to hear a little bit more about like your story. So how did you get into functional health and like what was your own personal journey with all that too?
Yeah, absolutely. So believe it or not, I know you know this, but I was in corporate finance for about 10 plus years. So I worked in accounting, finance, larger corporations and startups for the majority of my past life, I call it now. And I also battled with autoimmune disorder. So I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's hypothyroidism when I was in college. So pretty young. I remember the doctor that I went to said, there's no way you have this. It's for, typically for older women. Now, mind you, this was many, many years ago. So when we got my lab work back, he said, you are my youngest client officially. So that diagnosis happened. Yeah, it was definitely a bit shocking. I didn't know much about what the heck that meant. What does your thyroid do? None of that, all of that was foreign to me. So for the first, 10 years of that diagnosis, I really relied on endocrinologists and doctors and their guidance without doing a lot of research on my own. Now, simultaneously, I was working in this, corporate job and I was burning out pretty quickly. Obviously, I'm no longer there, so you can, spoiler alert, but the job was it was fulfilling in some ways, but others I could tell it was just kind of keeping me stuck a little. And before we get to that whole part of quitting and, all of that, really, like I said, things with this autoimmune disorder got really, really out of hand about 5 or so years ago. So when I first got diagnosed, symptoms were things like weight gain, fatigue, poor circulation, anxiety, depression, all of these fun things that I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably deal with every day as well. And once I started taking medication, there was a period where I felt better, but after about the 10-year mark, things started to get pretty bad again. So I went back to my endocrinologist and I said, hey, things aren't feeling great, and he said, let's run some lab work. So we did that and everything came back normal. All my lab work was normal for the, typical thyroid markers, but I just didn't feel good. I felt I had to take a nap every single day around 3 p.m. And as you know, with a corporate job, that's pretty tough. Even out doing fun things with friends every weekend, this was one of the most fun times in my life. Lots of my friends getting married, having parties and bachelorette parties, and I was having to really conserve sleep and, conserve all of my energy in these supposedly really fun times. I was also gaining weight like crazy. My hair was falling out and my anxiety had come back quite a bit. So all of these symptoms were happening, but again, the lab work looked what quote unquote was normal. So I was sort of running out of answers. I, again, was just pretty unhappy in general. So a friend had told me about muscle testing, which is also called nutrition response testing. And so that is sort of how I got into this whole work and finding root cause of the, what's going on, asking different questions of my body and sort of going down that route. So that's a lot of information, but that's really how I got into it. Before I switched my whole career.
My gosh, I feel for you so much. It's so hard, especially when you're going through all those symptoms and you're like feeling a little lost of like, why is my body having all this happen at once? And It can feel a little scary and alarming. And then you're like, you don't really know the step to get there. And so it can feel very like fearful. And so did you feel like once you found muscle testing, it was something that kind of like unlocked a new part of your healing journey too?
Completely. For me, what muscle testing provided was, like I kind of mentioned, different answer, asking different questions to get to the answer. So for me, it was, okay, this is your diagnosis. Let's put that aside for a minute. Why is that happening? Why is your immune system activating in that way? Why is your thyroid not working? So that's where root cause healing really became prominent for me. It was a completely different way to look at health. Typically, again, I would take the pill, the thyroid pill, and hope that things would get better, but that just wasn't happening anymore. So I knew that there was more to the story that my body was trying to tell me. I was also in a place at that time where I was really frustrated with my body. And I know you've talked about that before as well. You kind of turn on your body. Why am I different? Why isn't it working like everyone else is? Why am I so tired? A lot of why me was happening. And muscle testing gave me a really cool way to figure out what was going on under the surface. So with root cause healing, I love to think of an analogy. Imagine you're in a garden and you see two of the same plants. They're separate and they both have yellow leaves. So one of them is, maybe it's yellow leaves because there's an infestation of insects. Whereas the other one maybe isn't getting enough sunlight. They're in different spots. They are the same species, but they're completely different root causes as to why that plant is looking a little different or not thriving. So our bodies are exactly the same. Using that same analogy, someone might have hormonal acne. Okay, great. It's hormonal, but what is underlying that acne and why are hormones off? So when I talk about root cause healing, I'm talking about mostly 4 main stressors. There's a 5th bonus one, but the real root cause is either, in my practice that I've seen in the last few years, heavy metals, chemicals, food, or immune challenges. And within immune challenges, there's things like fungus, virus, bacteria, things that we've had for a long time that our body is just signaling to us, hey, I want to get this out. So that's really what I'm talking about with stress. The 5th bonus one is emotions. It's, outside stressors, like, for example, maybe it's your corporate job that's keeping you a little bogged down. I know that was a big part of my healing, but the body really holds on to that kind of stuff as well. So once we really figure out, hey, I have this symptom, my body is trying to tell me something. So I got out of that, my body's the villain mode, and really got into, she's just trying to communicate something to me through this fatigue. She's trying to keep me safe, whatever it looks like. Maybe hair loss seems crazy to us, but in our body's way, that's saying, hey, I'm actually preserving the nutrients I have. Hair is a nice to have, not a need to have. That's just another example. So really figuring out what were those root causes for me was an absolute game changer, and when I really started to notice shifts in my own health.
I love that. And it is so true. It's like we're very much taught to almost like seek out understanding for our health, and then sometimes we're like get frustrated when we don't have all the answers. But instead of like flipping the script of like, oh, our body is just trying to communicate with us,
Right.
and like learning that language, I think changes so much, instead of letting like a certain label or a certain diagnosis like really define you. And it's like, that's not who you are. It's like your body's just trying, it's just like a collection of symptoms and your body's just trying to like regulate with them.
Yes, I love that so much. And you put it perfectly. I mean, again, I was villainizing my body for so long. It took a lot of unlearning to kind of step back and say, every symptom is truly just your body saying something is off. I am communicating to you that way. Your body can't necessarily talk to you directly, so that's how it says, hey, I need a little help in this area. So what I'm trained to do, and what muscle testing and root cause healing does, is it really helps to figure out, what is that specific stressor? So going back to the plant example, it seems kind of silly, but without knowing that this one's infested with insects and this one's not getting enough sunlight, the treatment should be different. It shouldn't be the same for both. And every single person is the same way. We all have different upbringings, different root causes that we need to figure out, okay, great. Trisha's is XYZ, but Emily's is completely different. So they need to be done differently. And that's where muscle testing really comes in, to figure out what is the specific protocol. A lot of the work I do is through nutrition and supplements, but I also layer in lab work. So you've got that data as well. Putting all of those together with your symptoms, we can really figure out specific protocols for each person. And that is where things absolutely changed for me.
See, and I feel like that it feels so much more curated towards you instead of just like a blanket or just like throwing medicine at the problem sometimes.
Totally.
And it's just so nice to be able to like get down to the root and to have something that is so matched for you specifically. Because just as you put it, everyone's body is so different and so unique.
Right.
And so everyone needs like a certain tailored way of like really approaching their body. So back to like when you were working in your corporate job, did you end up like falling in love with this so much that you're like, I think this is something that I want to pursue going forward?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
At the same time, so I'd worked with a practitioner for about a year, really noticed huge shifts, obviously. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't a huge believer or a total nerd in how this all works and how it can really change your life. For me, I started noticing though, after that year, once you get your body back, you start to kind of notice other areas in your life where this kind of root cause approach could be helpful. So, a lot of these symptoms were going away, and yet there was still some anxiety that was happening. And I really realized I was just very unhappy in what I was doing. And my passion was really, how can I help more people feel better? So I was given the opportunity to really learn the skill, to get some of these certifications that were necessary. Of course, if you told me 5 years ago even that I would be out of a corporate job and in more of a health and healing space, that felt like the goal, but not something that felt attainable. So over the last few years, I've worked with hundreds of clients to try and figure out, what are some of these root causes that they're seeing? And again, it's every person is different, every day is different, and it just keeps me on my toes, and that's why I love it. You kind of feel like a detective. Hey, this person's labs are showing this, their symptoms are showing this, they're feeling like this, what is their root? And then that's how we kind of address things. So so I left corporate now about 5 years ago, which is pretty crazy to think about. Haven't quite looked back since. I'm absolutely loving it, and then was able to kind of start my own practice in the last 6 months.
I think it's so funny. I think we were so divinely guided, especially at the point that I met you in my journey too, because I like our even though our past week we have our own unique journeys, I think there's a lot of similarities of crossovers because I was having so many random symptoms where I was going to like all these different Western doctors getting like nowhere. And then at the same time, I was also like, building this business and really trying to quit my corporate job. So it's just so funny how like
Wild.
you had experienced that years before and then you like walk that path. So then when I would go in and see you, you were like, I totally know what you're feeling. Like every time I'd be coming in crying. Suddenly you're like, girl, I
Yes.
totally see you and get it.
We were in the same spot. The crying about the job can only take you so far, right? And I just remember the first time you came in and said, I think I'm going to quit. And I said, just do it. Just do it. You can always go back. If you get that, paying that intuition that, hey, this is not a great fit for me anymore. Why the heck not? Again, it's all of our bodies just trying to protect us a bit. So I think, yeah, leaving corporate was fantastic for me. It's, again, everybody's different, but this is truly where, if I think about what lights me up, it's helping people heal in this specific way and, putting the puzzle pieces together, like I said. So it's been a lot of fun.
What do you feel like was signs your body was giving you to know something was no longer in alignment? So
Oh,
like,
yeah.
did you have any feelings during that time? Even though like you obviously had the symptoms, was there anything else that was like really just like pushing you where like your nervous system was like, hey, we're unable to regulate. We're a little bit stuck in this
Absolutely.
position.
And that's nervous system is I'm so glad you brought that up because that is really step one. As you know, with my approach that I
Yes.
love to use with people, if your nervous system is not happy and you're in that state of stress, it's going to be really tough for your body to heal. So for me, I was back on anxiety meds. I was feeling like I just couldn't get my head above water in this job. I was really, really stressed. But my body just felt like something, I wasn't meant to be there, like something was wrong. It's one of those really tough to describe kind of intangible feelings that you just know, I might be overstaying my welcome here a little bit. And so I just let myself get quiet and was really beautifully guided to this work through a different mentor. It was just a really special time where everything just sort of aligned. But it wouldn't have aligned had I not gotten my body in order, had I not gotten really quiet and just sort of opened myself up to, hey, look, I'm ready for whatever's next. I was guided to this mode of healing, to learning this skill. Now, whatever is next, I'm ready for. So the signs were definitely there. And hindsight's 2020. When I look back, I think, wow, it just wasn't right. It just was not right. I knew it and I could feel it. And I'm really, really happy that I listened to that and let my body just kind of lead the charge and go where it needed to go.
Yeah. And I'm so happy that you listened to it too, because you not only help me, but you also help so many others too. And like being able to walk that in your own path and then also to come back and be like understanding for others, I think that just adds a whole other layer to this too. We're able to really understand what all your clients and everyone is going through too.
Thank you. That means the world to me. And I will say the best motivator that I've had throughout all of this is, we all, especially as women, imposter syndrome can be super real. But the way that really got me through it was hearing people's stories of, sometimes it's, I don't know what you did, but it's great. It's working. I'm so happy. Or, when people tell their friends, it's those referrals. That's where I really realized this is exactly the work I want to be doing, the people that I want to be working with. And, I've seen it in my own body, my own journey, but when you see other people really start to feel better and feel more like themselves. And the biggest piece I would say, and this is something I know that we worked on a ton, is I just want people, women especially, to feel empowered in their own bodies. I want you to, take a
Yes.
symptom and say, okay, this doesn't feel great. Maybe I have a headache, but what is my body trying to tell me? Is, what's the underlying story here and how can I give it the support it needs? Because our bodies, again, they can't just raise their hands and say, hey, this is exactly what's going on. Sometimes we just need to listen. We need to get more in tune with our bodies. So that's really the work that I love to do, is regulating the nervous system so we can get into our bodies more and listen a little bit closer.
Yes. That is such the key. And I love that you said why, because that is so true. And I think the one thing that I was so appreciative we were working together as well was like at the very beginning of my journey, I feel like it helped me in every aspect of my life where I was like being able to eat, making sure I was exercising and like just tracking everything, not in a way that was like overwhelming, but just like a daily like little upkeep of, okay, how's my body doing? Like little check-ins.
Right.
I feel like that was so impactful because I think that then set up the foundation. So my body was ready to detox. And then once I was going through the detox, it's like I was kind of able to like understand over time of, oh, this is what my body's kind of giving me like the signs for. And what I loved when you would muscle test me too, you were so good at like being vocal, where like you would take me along on the journey where you're like, okay, like I would go in and I would share all my symptoms. And then when you would start to then do all the muscle tests, you're like, okay, like let's test this. All right, this supplement is good for this because of why, like really giving suggestions and taking me through so I understood my body. So instead of like almost how sometimes when you go into a doctor and like they're just like kind of quietly reading over your charts, they're not really giving you the full picture. And I feel like I appreciate that so much with you because you were able to like really give all the information. So then I was able to then take that and now I'm like, oh, okay, I understand my body now. Like where I know we worked a lot with like fungus, but like for example, like my one back left tooth was always hurting every time and I would always know it's my fungus. It sounds so crazy, but it's like that's how our body communicates. So I feel like
Right.
over time we're able to uncover that pattern where I'm like, wait a minute, this is like a little trend that's happening here.
Oh, I love that, Trisha. You're my biggest hype woman. I love it. But it's so true.
Yes.
We know, our bodies are talking to us. We just have to have a little help
Mhm.
sometimes. And that's what I think is so great about this is what I'm just kind of trained to help your communicate with your body. It sounds crazy, right? But that's really what nutrition response testing and muscle testing is. It's, hey, every time this back tooth flares, it's making that connection that, ooh, something's a little off. Is it fungus? Whatever it is, it's just figuring out that root. And so that is my, like, that's the best testimonial you could give me to keep going is I was able to start tracking my own symptoms, figuring out what was wrong, and then going forward with that. I think it's so beautiful. You also mentioned something that I think is super important in this kind of this space as well is once
Yeah.
you start feeling better. So once we start to kind of detox from the root, and we'll go over that in a second. I think that's important as well to kind of talk about, the progression of things. But once you start to get after the root, you notice things a little bit more when you feel better in your body. So you're no longer in that survival mode. For me, it was I didn't need to take naps every single day at 3 p.m. That not only gave me time back, but it gave a lot of mental space. I wasn't as exhausted. I was
Yeah.
able to start to kind of reassess other areas in my life that maybe weren't as aligned anymore. And I know it sounds a little crazy, but really, truly, once you start feeling better, you start to realize, oh gosh, okay, there might be a little bit of other things I need to look at or a few other things I need to kind of address in my life as a whole. So whether that's, friendships that aren't serving you, people that aren't great, or, a routine that you're in. I remember I was doing workouts that just were really high intensity, and my body just did not love that. You shouldn't feel that way after a workout. You just really start to think
Yeah.
differently. And I think there's such a place, muscle testing and what I do, this root cause healing is really part of a bigger puzzle. So for me, the synthetic thyroid medication was really helpful. But there was more to the
Mhm.
story as well to layer on top of that. So I think there's a time and a place for all of it, but really getting our bodies back into that sort of state of balance where they can start to do what they're meant to do, is really important. So, and I think that's another piece I think is super important of it is our bodies know what to do. They know how to heal. They know, these supplements and these things are, a lot of them are just plants that have been used for thousands of years to help the body to detox from things. So they're not these crazy, blends of XYZ. They're things that our body already knows. We have these organs like our liver, our kidneys. When we sweat, we're really getting these things out of our body through our bowel movements. As glamorous as it is,
Mhm.
it's just helping you get your body back to a space where it is not so overloaded that it can start to come in contact with these stressors and flush them out, which is exactly what we want. So that's a lot of the work that I
Yes.
focus on.
I am obsessed with it. And the one thing that you said too really resonated where once you come out of that survival mode, I think like you can really tell when you're starting to go back into that fight or flight because
Absolutely.
now like I used to be I was similar where I was also anxious, and for me whenever I was anxious like I feel like I physically couldn't eat. So it was kind of hard for me sometimes to like really track meals in a sense of like I wanted to just snack a lot where I feel like it was
Right.
just hard for me to like have a big meal every day. Now, since I've become so regularly, like now I have to have my meals. I'm like I have to eat. Like I can feel that blood sugar drop and I am like, "Oh my gosh, I need to eat something immediately." Like now I can
Right.
really tell, but I think it's also like so cool to see how your body, like once your body builds that trust with you, then you're able to really pick up on those cues so much faster,
Right.
and then you're able to have more energy and to do all the things that you actually love and want to do because you're so in tune with yourself.
And that is like the goal, right? It's you have, for you,
Mhm.
when you're not eating, you can tell what that feels like. Whereas when you start to
Yeah.
get your blood sugar back on the line, you're having, larger meals or more snacks throughout the day, whatever it is, again, everybody's different. You will notice that and you will feel those shifts and you will be so motivated.
Hmm.
I think it's a slippery slope too of not every symptom is needs a response or is a really bad thing. It
Definitely.
can get a little into that
Hmm.
territory. So just knowing that, hey, my
Hmm.
body's just trying to protect me. This is what it needs right now.
Hmm.
Great. You're really in touch with that. And that's the best part of all of this. I think too, the goal is
Yes.
to not have someone taking supplements their whole lives. That is never the goal.
Hmm.
The goal is to really get the body set up with some foundational nutrients, get those pathways open, get the body back to knowing how, okay, hey, my liver knows how to detox these things. She might just need a little extra support right now before we move into what we
Hmm.
call the detox, which is, in anybody's case, let's say it's a fungal overload that they're dealing with. What are some of those supplements that
Hmm.
will help detox that extra fungus? Great. And then ideally, we get you down to maintenance, which is just a few supplements. In this day and age, I will say there are a lot of stressors out there. So sometimes it is a bit harder to get fully off of supplements. But the goal is that maybe you're taking one a day, which, to be honest, most of us are taking a lot
Hmm.
more than that already. It's just getting the ones that are targeted. So that's the other thing I love
Hmm.
about muscle testing, a little bit of a tangent, but we can be taking 20 supplements and feeling great, but how do we know that we need all 20? It's a really cool way to kind of hone in and get your list down to the essentials, to what's actually helping. So we're not just, wasting time and money on a bunch of random things.
Yeah, and I think too, especially when you're kind of getting into this like functional health world, it can feel very overwhelming. There's like a lot of supplements, and there's just so much information that's thrown at you where it's like you need to go sauna, you need to go do this. There's like so many wellness avenues, so it can feel like very overwhelming. And so it's so nice to have a practitioner who's like, no, we're going to actually learn from your body and to hear what your body actually needs instead of just throwing everything at it. So I know with your business in Well Collective, which I love the name
Thank
and the website is so
you.
cute. So everyone needs to go check it out right now. So to kind of take us through like your process with that. So like when someone's like having some symptoms, like where's like the first start? What's the first point of coming in?
Absolutely. So we always start with a quick kind of discovery call. So Anybody that is interested in working together, it's a complimentary, quick 20-minute session where you tell me what you've been dealing with, essentially. Nothing is too weird. As you know, working together, you can come in and say, my back tooth hurts. I don't know if that's relevant. And it can be completely relevant to your gut health, to your hormones, to whatever it is. So I always tell people all of information is welcome and honestly encouraged. So we start there. We sort of talk about the approach, like I talked about. There's really those different phases. We start with getting your body mineralized so that it's open and ready to go into that detox before eventually we come off on maintenance. So we talk about the program in general. We talk about, what you've been feeling. What have you done before? What's worked for you? What hasn't? And then if we decide it's a good fit, that's where the testing comes in. So again, I'm trained to figure out what specific stressors are resonating with your body. It's really, everything has frequency. So what frequencies are your body kind of saying, ooh, I don't love that, whether it's a food, whether it's, old viral stuff that's been hanging out for a while, whatever it is, that's where that comes in. So I do that testing. We also layer in lab work. So everybody that I see does some pretty basic functional lab work. We use functional ranges as opposed to kind of the more traditional Western medicine ranges. That gives us a little bit more to layer in the picture as well. So that's where we can see some of these, if it's fungal, if it's viral, whatever it might be, you can see a lot of that in the lab work. And then that's just another piece of the puzzle that we use to kind of build out your protocol. And then each week we do our testing. I see people pretty much weekly for the beginning, and then we can kind of start to spread it out a little bit more as well. So that's sort of how the program works. Typically it's either 3 or 6 months, just sort of depending on how you're feeling. And, I have a few people who've started with 3 months and say, oop, I actually want to extend a little bit longer. So it just depends on how you're feeling and how much of the heavy lifting you want to get into together.
Yeah, take us a little bit more through the beginning phase with like prepping your body and then also the detox. Like what does that look like and what is like on a body level happening too?
Absolutely. So again, like I mentioned, in this day and age, there's a lot of stressors that are out of our control. I mean, we're living in an age too where stress is at an all-time high. Our food sources are different and evolving, things like that. I try not to focus too much on all of that. It's more so, how's that impacting my body specifically? So that first phase is really making sure that your body has enough minerals and those foundational nutrients that it needs so that we can be successful. So I know you mentioned this previously too, but you could probably go on TikTok and have a billion people talking about different supplements that will help with XYZ, or do this cleanse, do this detox, this and there's nothing wrong with a lot of those, but a lot of times people feel worse because we're throwing everything at it. And that's just an approach that I found for my personal healing and with clients I've worked with isn't always the best. So we start with that foundational nutrient. We also try and get what we call drainage pathways open. So this is a concept that your liver and your kidneys, your gallbladder, they are working really hard to detox these things. So when they have hit their limit, which in a lot of people, that's the case, that's why we start to feel these symptoms. So once we get those pathways back open, this is the less glamorous piece, but what's really important there is how often are you going to the bathroom? That's a huge piece. A lot of people are really constipated, or maybe they swing the other way. We want to normalize that so that your body can excrete these toxins through your bowel movements. That's really what we're focusing on in phase 1. So then when your body indicates to me, hey, I feel really good, we're ready, we are ready to go into that phase 2, that detox. That's where we just add in 1 or 2 supplements that would go after your specific stressor. So let's say your priority, we'll kind of stick with fungus here. Maybe you lived in a place that had mold growing up. Maybe you don't have that information. That's okay. Guess what? Your body's going to tell me anyway. I think that's the most fun part, is you can't really hide a lot. Your body is going to tell on you a little bit because it wants to feel better. So that's where we go into that second phase, which is really detoxing from that root. That's where the real work happens. So since we've done that really awesome foundation work, you likely aren't going to feel too terrible on this detox. The goal is that you're not feeling like you're having these flu-like symptoms, or, you're just adding something in and you're starting to progressively feel better.
Yeah, it's like a gradual phase,
Yes,
right? It's
definitely.
like you're slowly building your body up to get ready. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that was the coolest part with root cause healing, but can also be a big cause for frustration for people we live in a society where I want it now, right? I want the answer now. I want the pill that's going to make it feel better now. With root cause healing, it can take a little bit longer. Like I mentioned, that 3 to 6 month is kind of the sweet spot what I see with most clients. Some come a week later and go, I feel so much better already. That's fabulous. The goal is that you will continue to feel even better as we start to get to the root. So, again, it can take a little bit longer for people, but the goal is to just get after these things so that they don't reoccur. Yeah. I've had a lot of clients seen many doctors, or they've seen, hey, my lab results are normal, but I don't feel great. And that was myself as well. That's, I know that's kind of where we were landing as well. What are those next steps? And that's where muscle testing and root cause healing can get really, really cool.
I'm going back to the frustration piece. I feel like that was a huge thing too, where sometimes I was like wanting things to just be healed, where I'm like, oh, I'm like another layer. It's like an emotion.
Absolutely.
Or as we know, and I've already talked on this too, but like healing my skin with the whole birth control journey, which is, still sometimes progressing.
Yeah.
But I think it's also taking some of the small wins throughout that time too. And do you feel like for people when they're going through this, that sometimes they might like have some symptoms pop up, and that's usually like a good sign, right? It shows that your body is clearing some of that out too.
Yes. I love that you brought that up. First things first, wins are huge. Even if someone comes to me and they say, I slept for 8 hours last night for the first time in years, and their biggest focus is acne. That is such a big win. And a lot of times, again, we focus on one or two things, whether it's we're feeling anxious, whatever it is, that these other things sort of go unnoticed. So once you start to heal, you start to realize, well, that's crazy. This is feeling better as well. This is not something I even thought to discuss. But the other thing that you said that I thought is super important is layers. The body has a lot of layers. We're sort of peeling away those different layers in this root cause healing. So your root might start out as fungal. It might then come into parasites. It might then evolve, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Every body is different. Every person's different. Every protocol is different. So once we uncover one layer, you might notice a new symptom, exactly like you said. Okay, so we've gotten rid of this layer. Now, my sleep is feeling a little off. Okay, how can we better support sleep? Is it that we need to pause on detox and get those nutrients back in and going? Or is there another stressor that your body's saying, hey, I'm ready to tackle this one now? So it's super important to kind of go at it in those layers. And, it can be frustrating when you're like, I just feel like I'm going. But again, what I found with muscle testing is it really gets you to your body specifically. So it goes a little bit smoother as we're really just asking, hey, what's the next item that you want to work on body that's going to make us feel better in general?
I want to go back to something that you mentioned too, which is parasites, which I know has been a hot topic. Can you explain them? Because I feel like that there's a lot of misconception out there. When people hear that, they have a lot of fearful thoughts around it, but our bodies naturally have parasites in them, right? It's just the bad ones sometimes get a little out of whack.
Exactly.
So do you want to explain some of that?
It's similar to bacteria. There's bad and there's good. I do think what I've seen in my practice and with clients is most of us have parasites. Scary, I know, but they're not as terrifying as they seem. So it's been very, very trendy on social media as well. Parasite cleansing. Now, parasites can hold on to a lot of these other kind of toxins. So a lot of times, especially with women, some trends that I see is once we start to go through, some fungal overgrowth, things like that, parasites then typically pop up where they maybe didn't in the beginning. That's just your body starting to feel a little safer. Again, we work in those layers. But parasites can also hold on to some emotional frequencies, and they can cluster together. They do a lot of fun stuff in the body. So it's important that we get a lot of those out. So the other thing that's really interesting is, especially in Western culture, we think, we have really clean food sources, clean everything, that we don't need to do those. But in a lot of Eastern cultures, they do parasite cleanses many times throughout the year. And I think that that's something that we can really take and learn from them. With parasite cleansing, our pets have them, the dirt has them, even some of our food has them. So we can get them from a lot of different places, but just like bacteria or fungus, there's no need to panic. There's no need to freak out. They're just another thing that we can pretty easily detox from, again, when your body indicates it's ready and going after with whatever supplement it says, this is the one I want to do it with. So Yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool research on parasites, especially more recently. They are becoming more normal, which is fantastic. I look a lot
Mhm.
less crazy now when we talk about parasites, which is beautiful.
I never thought you were crazy, for the record.
Thank
I
you. I
always
so
believed it.
appreciate
I
that.
I totally got it.
I so appreciate that. I mean, it's just a different way of thinking of health. I know when I first started
Mhm.
doing muscle, getting muscle tested myself, I thought, man, this is really weird. And then I started to feel better and thought, okay, I'm in. This is great. I love this. It's just a different way of thinking of health because, yeah, root cause healing is just not something that we're often taught. And it's super important. Again, it's just another piece of the puzzle.
Is there like any sort of similarities that you've seen in your practice or you feel like a lot of people collectively are going through right
Oh
now?
yeah, I love that question. Females hormones, obviously big, big time, especially
Yes.
perimenopause, periods. Periods shouldn't feel
Mm,
really bad every month. You shouldn't be feeling really, really uncomfortable. Yes, it's not the most fun thing, but if you're having some severe symptoms, even throughout the month, I think there's not a ton of, literature about all the different phases, and I love that that's becoming something that's a lot more common and
yes.
being spoken about. I think it's super important. So that's a big one, is just hormones. Again, we could, a lot of times doctors will say let's get on birth control, and that might be right for someone, but why are hormones
Mhm.
off? What is the root of that? So that's a big one. A lot of gut stuff too. Gut stuff is big. There's a huge, huge connection between the gut, your hormones, and brain. So anxiety, depression, all of that, a lot of that starts in the gut. So again, we talked a little bit about food sources changing over, the last few
Yeah.
10 years or so. And that can be part of it, but it's also just our guts are a little bit more stressed out for whatever reason. So giving people that support with their guts. Autoimmune is a big one as well. I have a lot
Mhm.
of clients that, similar to myself, obviously that was my own journey as well. Autoimmune triggers and flares are big in this day and age. And for whatever reason, we just have to figure out, again, I think it can be super overwhelming. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of different, thought, studies going on, all of that. For me, I just always root it in muscle testing, and I know how to get to the answer. What is the stressor? What is the root cause? And I will again say that so many times, but we tend to
Mhm.
get really overwhelmed with here's a million different supplements, but what is your body asking for and what is the root is really where we can anchor ourselves to start to feel better.
Yeah, and to go back to hormones too, I feel when women are young, we're not really taught about our bodies. I feel like sometimes like birth control is just thrown at us.
Mhm.
And so now like I personally am relearning a lot of my cycle and a lot of that.
Yeah.
And it is just like so fascinating that over time you really start to sync up with your body and you understand your cycle. But before, like no one really taught us the hormones.
Right.
No one knows when your estrogen peaks, when your progesterone, and you're just like, why am I feeling so like tearful before my period? When it's
Right.
like, oh, that's just your luteal
Right.
phase. I think it's just so great to have that like layered in too for women because it's like it almost makes you feel so much more empowered and you can start to plan things a little bit more. Where you're like, oh, I know during my follicular phase and during my ovulation, I'm gonna be wanting to go out more, I'm gonna be more social, then maybe luteal's a little bit more inward and like it's cool once you can do that so then you can start to sync up with a lot of like your own social calendar or just like a lot of your own life calendar in
Oh,
there too. It's like
absolutely.
so empowering and life changing.
Yes, it is so, so important. And a lot of times, yeah, I was the same way. I had acne in high school, and the answer was, hey,
Mhm.
here's the birth control to kind of normalize those hormones. And that's just sort of, we do that when we're younger, but I do think it's super important, and this is something I found with my own thyroid journey as well, is I was not getting as many of the why. It was more here's a solution,
Mm.
which everything in
Yeah.
tandem, right? It's all part of a puzzle. But I've done a ton of my own research. I think it's super important. You mentioned it as well. It's important to be really informed or to find a practitioner that can help walk you through it. That is my favorite thing to do, is to tie these symptoms to, XYZ. This is why you're feeling this way. I often just nerd out on it with clients. We could talk forever about, their upbringing or, what maybe caused this. And that's where I think it's so cool to see. It's similar to like, talk therapy where you're kind of unearthing, why are my emotional patterns this way? It's very
Yeah.
similar with the body. A lot of this stuff starts way, way back in the day. And not to say that's right or wrong. It's just, it's part of the puzzle, and it's fun to kind of unravel it and unpack it a bit to help people just feel better. That's the whole goal.
Yes, it's like a little bit like body therapy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
And they're all important.
somatic. Yeah.
Yep, they work in
Yeah.
tandem. You can't really do one without the other. You know, the body, that book, The Body Holds the Score, or Keeps the Score, is a bestseller for a reason. So it's all interconnected. It's all just getting those different layers.
So fascinating. So once like someone goes through the detox, like the end goal is essentially to kind of be in a more regulated state.
Exactly that. Like, no one's gonna want to be on all these supplements forever, and nor should you. If you're on a lot of supplements for a long time, in my opinion, or in what I've seen, we might be missing something, or there's something a little bit deeper going on. And again, just more layers. But the goal here is to get you feeling more like yourself, and to get what we call your toxic load down so low. So again, our bodies know how to detox naturally. I am not here to say that they don't. That is why they're built. Sometimes they just need a little help getting back to that state where they're not so stressed out that they can do it. And that's exactly what working together, that's my whole goal with people, is you are not going to eliminate symptoms. There is no way. That is not the goal. That is unrealistic. When you have a symptom, your body is trying to fight whatever it is. So let's get that load down by detoxing some of this older stuff, or some of these exposures. Maybe they were recent. It, again, doesn't totally matter where they were from. It matters that we're getting them out of the body so that your body comes back online and is able to come in contact with things and just get rid of them like it should, through bowel movements. Like I said, not the most glamorous thing, but that is really the goal. So maintenance is getting you down to maybe 1 to 2. I personally love something that helps keep the liver and the kidneys, those detox organs, going. Maybe it's, something for inflammation, whatever it is. And then if you find yourself, in a year starting to kind of feel off again, that's where we can do a little mini detox, or whatever the body's asking for. So, but the goal is, not to have you on a billion things forever. I find, again, that's not only stressful for you mentally, but also can be for your body. It's a lot to handle.
Yeah, always to be like taking all that in. It can feel very overwhelming at times,
Yeah.
for sure.
The idea
Yeah.
is that we're on a curve here. We start, we remineralize, we peak, we detox, we come back down to more maintenance.
It's like it's a cycle, right? And like your body is like just getting back into its rhythm is the whole thing.
Exactly. Your body knows what it's doing. It's made this way. It's just trying to communicate to you, hey, I need a little help right now in getting back to my baseline.
Yes, exactly. So Emily, where can people find you to work with? And you can also work with people virtually too,
Yes.
right?
So I do most of my work virtually. So my website is inwellcollective.com. So no spaces, nothing in that. And I also have Instagram. I admittedly am still getting a little used to social media. I am not the best at it. So website is definitely the best way. But my advice would be, if this piqued your interest or you're curious, a discovery call is always free, and it is a no commitment. So if you're like, I just want to hear a little bit more, let's do it. Let's chat. As you can tell, I could talk about this for hours. I find it so interesting, and just such a different way of thinking. So I love chatting about it. That's sort of where to find me. You can find the link on my website to book one of those. But yeah, this is definitely my passion. Again, if you had told me 5 years ago, this is where I would be at, I would say you're crazy, but I could not be happier that I get to help people in this way, in the same way that I was helped in the beginning, to heal my own body as well.
And I'm so grateful again that you like found this track, because again, you helped me so much, especially about like learning my own body and just like really being able to get it back into a place where I felt like I could regulate and be in rhythm. So I will tell everyone to work with you, because it will work. Emily is amazing. She takes you through the process. You understand it. You're in good care. So
Thank you.
highly recommend. And I will also drop your website in the show notes
that
too,
would
so
be
people can
great.
find you in the link and they can get to it.
That would be
Yes.
great. Yeah. And Trisha, it's been wonderful learning and helping you to kind of get more in your body as well. It's been fantastic. And yeah, anyone can do it. It truly is that easy. Even if you're like, wow, I have 18 things that I feel like are just wrong. You are not a lost cause. Trust me, I've been there. I have battled with my own body, but again, we're made this way to help, to heal, and that's how it's supposed to be. So we just sometimes need a little help.
Yes, our bodies know how to heal themselves. So your body can
You're
do it
doing the
too.
hard work. I'm just here to communicate. That's all.
Yes. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today,
Thanks
Emily.
for
You
having
were
me.
such a light. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. And hopefully everyone will be able to come work with you. So make sure you
Yes.
go sign up and to find you and book a call.
You're the best. Thank you so much. And yeah, again, if you have any questions, just let me know. But excited to hear from a bunch of you and help you start to feel better.
Thank you.